Welcome to episode 37 of From the Shed End podcast with myself, TDOT. And as always, I'm joined by Theo. So, how are you doing, first of all, Theo?
Good, thanks. I really enjoyed the game on Saturday, and we're actually recording this at 9 a.m. And I'm not really a morning person, so I really hope I talk some sense in this episode. But yeah,
It's
excited
8
to talk
o'clock
about
somewhere,
Chelsea
I'm
before my
sure.
before my work day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like Australia or somewhere. It's probably like nighttime now, I think. But yeah, no. So yeah, it's been a busy couple of days. Obviously, we had the Leicester game. As you just said, we're recording this 9 o'clock. So today is Juventus. But let's jump back straight into the Premier League. Leicester City versus Chelsea, which I thought was a really good game. Um, Solid performance from literally the whole team from front to back. I can't really fault anyone for that game, but just give me your thoughts as always on the game. What did you think?
I thought it was the performance of the season. Honestly, maybe I can't really think of a 45 minutes when I'm thinking of that first half, particularly that was as good as that performance that we saw at the King Power. Maybe the first half of the Arsenal game, but even that, I feel like against Leicester we were so very very solid, which is surprising because after an international break you always see a bit of rustiness. But as you said, every single Chelsea player was really really sharp. Really played their part, from the goalkeeper to the players that came on as subs to Kai Havertz, who played as a false nine. I thought Kai Havertz was brilliant. You know, he was playing with his back to goal, and he was shielding the ball well, creating chances, and he was brilliant. I thought we were not only really, really good with the ball, but I think this is what we're seeing with Tuchel. We were brilliant without the ball as well. As soon as Leicester had the ball, we literally give them a couple of seconds to press. There was, I think, a moment in the first half, which I really saw a match today and made me realise how good we were, was when I think they had a free kick in their own half and they were forced to play it backward towards the goalkeeper. Then the goalkeeper played it to Johnny Evans, I think, who was under pressure or something like that, and had to clear it out for a throw-in. Then from that throw-in, we won the corner, which Chilwell took and Rudiger scored. So it just goes to show how good we were, not just with the ball, but without the ball. And if I had to kind of, single out some players for my kind of star performers, which is hard because every single one of them was good, even the subs that came on, Pulisic, Ziyech, and Loftus-Cheek really played their part as well. But I'd have to go with Thiago Silva and Kante. They were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Thiago Silva's, in the back, the middle of that back three, he was also like a bit like a Marshall. He'd start all the chances. He was brilliant, lobbed those long balls up the pitch, and then he really kept Vardy out of the game. Vardy, you have to remember, causes a lot of trouble with the top six teams, but we really kept him quiet. And then Kante did what Kante does best, winning the ball back, intercepting. And again, when we see this again, when Jorginho and Kante plays, we often think of Kante as that defensive midfielder. But I think in this game, we really saw Jorginho stay back and Kante allowed to, go forward. And twice, we saw him, the moment he got the goal and that time before where he tried to chip Schmeichel. So he had, two golden chances in a way. And that's what I think we're seeing. We have to kind of stop thinking of Kante now as this defensive midfielder, but also this midfielder that potentially can create chances, score goals, and, start attacks. So all in all, an absolutely brilliant performance. And I was really, really chuffed after full time.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with everything you said. I think it was a performance that I think before the game I was very sort of apprehensive. I wasn't sure whether we were going to play as well as we did. We know what Leicester can do, and we spoke about it in the last episode, especially to big teams. They do tend to turn up for the occasion, but I just felt it was a relatively easy game. I think you touched on it just then in terms of what we did without the ball, but like you said, a Kante going forward, bombing forward, and having all that space in front of him I think he was shot for the goal. To have that much space and to be able to, not to be closed down. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Johnny Evans who should be coming in and closing that space down and just stopping Kante, but he didn't do that, and it just showed you that there is obviously, you look at Leicester, they're a team that have done really well over the last couple of seasons, and you look at the European factor of it now. Is that starting to play a bit of a factor into why they're, I wouldn't say underachieving, because I think Leicester have been overachieving for 2 years now, and I think they shouldn't really be in a mix for a top four sort of conversation, but you're seeing it now. The sort of cracks are there, and there was a moment where I think Schmeichel, I think you might have just said this, but tried to play out from the back, and he gives the ball away. It's just little things that are coming into their game now, which we're noticing.
Yeah, I think he gave it to Hudson-Odoi, and then Hudson-Odoi almost had a golden chance. Yeah, But definitely, I think they've got a good squad, but I don't know. I feel like maybe European football, which you mentioned, is playing a part in them maybe underachieving, or even as I think I said it in a previous episode, maybe Brendan Rodgers' head now that the Man United job is vacant. Maybe he's thinking of something else. But
which
I
will
think
impact the
they've been
players as well.
almost. It will. I think they've been overachieving for the last 2-3 years. So I think it's about time maybe that they realistically, have these type of performances against the top 6 teams from time to time.
Definitely. One of the things I sort of noticed in the game was, you sort of mentioned it then in terms of Kante going forward, Jorginho sort of sitting back, and there's always this cliche around playing 3 centre backs. I think Paul Merson said it a few times. You it's a manager that doesn't trust his centre backs if you've got to play 3. I don't believe that. I think it's a load of rubbish. I think you've got 3 centre backs that are of good quality, which we have. What it allows, and we've done this to perfection against Leicester, was it allows Reece James and Chilwell to almost play as wingers and be part of that midfield, because you've got the 3 centre backs, you've got Jorginho providing that additional cover if we do lose the ball, like you mentioned, Vardy with his pace as well. It just gave Chilwell and Reece James the free reins down that sort of left and right side just to whip in balls, and you saw it time and time again. And in the first half, I think you looked at Leicester and you thought Rodgers has got to change this at half time, because if he doesn't, we could, like you mentioned, Kante had a really good chance. I think he should have tried to dink it over. I don't know what he tried to do. He sort of thought about dinking, but then he tried to go around Schmeichel. It was a bit half-hearted, but we had really good chances in the first half. I thought Rudiger, he loves to score against Leicester. It was really good play from Jorginho, and I don't think many people picked up on it. The fact that he blocks Ndidi from making that run that would stop Rudiger getting it. It was very training grounds sort of set piece, really. It was, Chilwell whips it in, but it's the work from Jorginho that stops Ndidi going towards Rudiger, who, was just in the right. It was brilliant, and I think they've got a really poor set piece, defending set pieces anyway. I think Leicester are rubbish at them anyway. So, Tuchel's obviously looked at that and seen that as a weakness and an exposure, and it worked to perfection. One player I wanted to talk about really is Christian Pulisic, who is very divided, I think, between the fans. Some fans love him. Some fans just say that he's an injury-prone merchant, and I think he's got the quality there, and he proved that on Saturday. He proved how much quality he's actually got, and Hakim Ziyech as well. We give him a lot of criticism on the podcast, but we're slowly seeing what we've actually wanted to see from the two of those players. Would you agree?
I mean, it's 2 players I think that have struggled for consistent game time, the pair of them. Pulisic in particular, I think when he's fully fit, I think he's our best player, definitely, in terms of ability, in terms of quality, in terms of what he can offer. He keeps kind of coming in and out of the team with injuries, but once he gets kind of like a string of performances like we saw against Leicester, a couple of the Champions League performances we saw last season in the knockout stages, then I definitely think he's our best player. And I just keeps making this link, but he's puts in some hazard-esque performances at times. The way he dribbles, the way he kind of keeps the ball close to him like it's attached with a string to his foot. And again, we saw, type of player when if you're in opposition and you see him come off the bench, you're thinking, oh shoot, I'm tired now, and this guy's coming on. He's got bags of energy, bags of skills. He's probably going to run past me on the touchline. And then Ziyech is another one. I think I've given him a lot of criticism. I kind of think his body language is poor. Occasionally, when he is given the chance to start, I think he doesn't really take that opportunity well. But against Leicester, he was perfect. He put in a brilliant cross at one point, I think, with the inside of his boot. I think outside of his boot, actually, against them. I think it was Pulisic. And then he kind of tried, and then he assisted Pulisic for the goal. And I think he came on with a lot of energy, a lot of skills. And that's kind of the Ziyech we want to see as Chelsea fans, who can create all of that. So I think the two of them were fantastic. And another player I thought that deserves a bit of a shout out was Trevor Chalobah. I think we don't really talk enough about Trevor Chalobah. We talk a lot about the other youth players like Mason Mount, like Reece James. And back in the day, we talked about Abraham and Tomori. But Trevor Chalobah has come into this Chelsea team. He looks like he's been there for years. That through ball he put in for Hakim Ziyech for the Pulisic goal was absolutely fantastic. It's the type of through ball you'd expect from a Fabregas, maybe a Toni Kroos, but it was a fantastic through ball, and he looks just so, so solid, looks so comfortable, like he's been there for years, as I said. So if he starts tonight, for instance, against Juventus, I would not have any kind of doubts or panics at all.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of that is down to the fact he's actually been, for the length of time he's been at the club. He's part of the foundations, and he's bided. I think he's only 22 as well, so he's still relatively young in terms of his footballing years, especially as a defender as well. And to have the experience that you've got in Thiago Silva at 37, still world class. Hasn't got the legs. Maybe I don't think he's ever really had the legs, but in terms of the football brain that he's got, that's enough to keep him, and sustain him at that level. But to have him have a Rudiger who's kind of different, but in terms of his, I suppose, his mentality on the pitch, it's different, but it's a good different because it gives you the other side of what Thiago Silva gives you as well. You look at Christensen as well. That's another player who has been at the club for many, many years and then has come through. So he's got those three centre backs to look ahead of. And I agree with you. He looks like someone who's been in the senior squad for 5, 6, 7 years, and to have that confidence to go forwards. And again, that goes back to my point around having those three centre backs and being able to trust them to go forward that much. The pass was exquisite. It was a really good pass, and like you said, it's almost a Toni Kroos, Fabregas kind of pass that you expect. But to see that from a centre back, a 22-year-old centre back, in his first real season at top level, it goes around. And even yesterday, listening to him in the press conference for tonight's game as well. I hate saying this because he's 22 as an adult, but he sounds so mature in terms of what he's saying, and I expect that he's 22 as an adult, but I just mean, I don't know what I mean. I know what I mean, but it's hard for me to get it across. He's someone who's definitely got his head on his shoulders, and I think he's only going to go one way, one direction. So definitely a shout out for him. I agree with you as well around Kante. It's strange. He's one of the best players, but he just doesn't know how to celebrate, does he? He scores a goal and he's not sure what to do. Do I hug someone? Do I cheer? But yeah, he's brilliant. And I think we're lucky in all aspects that I feel like we've got not only squad depth, but we've got the right quality of players in every department now. And I think we lacked that over the last couple of years. But we look at our goalkeepers, Mendy distribution was brilliant. You mentioned Thiago Silva defensively, but his passing was 5-star. You look at the two, Jorginho, Kante, and then even who we haven't mentioned today, but Kai Havertz again, who's someone who, people say he didn't score, he didn't have many chances, but it's the stuff that he does off the ball.
Great.
He was brilliant. He holds the ball up really well. Haydar kind of mentioned it on the last episode by saying, he's not your sort of typical, you can't compare him to Lukaku, which is correct. But I just think in terms of how he holds the ball up and, his runs as well. Some of the things he does off the ball, a lot of it is needed in a game against Leicester, and it definitely benefits Chelsea as well. But definitely 3 points that we needed. Obviously, there was the big game, obviously, for Arsenal. They got hammered by Liverpool, but it gives us that cushion. It's only 3 points. Man City are just behind us, but again, the record of scoring 30 goals already in this part of the season and only conceding 4. I think we're the most the top team now in Europe with the least conceded goals. So it tells you something about our centre backs and obviously our goalkeeper.
Definitely. I mean, just as we said, we kind of go into games now expecting wins and expecting clean sheets, which is almost crazy as a football fan. But when you can keep clean sheets away from home against teams like Leicester, then there's, when going into games like Juventus tonight, you expect a clean sheet again almost. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's something good about Chelsea in the air at the moment. The squad looks really kind of, happy to play under Thomas Tuchel. The depth is there. We mentioned players like Trevor Chalobah, which I spoke about just before. I think what really played a part in his maturity, a bit like Mason Mount, is kind of the fact they've headed out on loan to a foreign country. Mount went to Vitesse Arnhem in the Netherlands. Trevor Chalobah must have been 20, 21 when he went there, but he went to France, probably didn't speak the language. And he completed a 4th season at Lorient. And he was playing as a CDM at times in France. So it shows, again, we have that depth. Reece James plays as a CDM at times for Wigan, shows that how versatile he is. So you have these players as well. Should we really have injuries? Should maybe Saul cancel his loan in January? Should maybe, I think, Kovacic and Jorginho potentially injured for a bit now. Jorginho's a doubt maybe for tonight. But we've got those other players that potentially can slot in midfield. So it kind of reassures you as a Chelsea fan with the depth that we have, and especially with going into this busy, congested winter period as well.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned injuries. Let's quickly talk about a couple of them that Thomas Tuchel mentioned yesterday in his press conference. I think the main one really is, you mentioned Kovacic is out for 100% out, but there were some doubts around Lukaku, Timo Werner, Kai Havertz, and Jorginho, who came off against Leicester, I think with a very tight hamstring, and I think the same for Kai Havertz as well. I think they were both hamstring injuries, but going into tonight's game, which we'll get onto the prediction shortly, but just looking at and anyone who hasn't listened to episode 36, we do talk about the Juventus game tonight in depth. So if you want to hear our analysis or our thoughts on that, then give episode 36 a listen. It's all on there. But just in terms of the injuries, it does seem to be a common theme that's happening within Chelsea at the moment. We are having, and I'm trying to think back. I was trying to look before we started recording this morning how many injuries we had the last couple of seasons before, but it just seems like a common running theme now that we're kind of getting these niggling sort of injuries from certain players. But would you risk Lukaku in a game where, I don't want to say it's safe, it's not a safe game, it's Juventus, you still want to win, Thomas Tuchel's still going to want to win the game, but we saw what happened when we played Malmo, and the big blow, we've got United at the weekend as well. Is it a game where you'd probably bring him on, if you're comfortable that you've got a 1-0, 2-0 and there's 20 minutes left? Do you bring him on at that point, or would you risk starting him in a game like tonight against Juventus?
It's a tricky one because Lukaku's a doubt, Havertz is a doubt, and Werner's a doubt, which are kind of our three number 9 options, our 3 striking options. So it's whether we risk one of those 3 players. Probably Lukaku being the one who's most fit from his activity on social media. He's the one who's posting a lot of training pictures. And I do think he's got that age and experience, despite maybe if he's still feeling a bit of pain and he's not fully 100% fit, he can come into a game like this and put in a performance that makes you think, okay, he's on number 9. But at the same time, it's maybe do you wait one more game and have him fully fit for the United one and maybe play a Pulisic as a false 9, maybe even a Loftus-Cheek as a false 9. So there's something like that to consider. But I think Tuchel will really assess the situation this morning, see amongst those 3 players I named, Havertz, Lukaku and Werner, which ones are fit, which ones are not fit, and make his decision from there. But I think Lukaku might play a part, whether it's he starts or comes off the bench. But I think, as I said in the previous episode, it's so hard to predict the Tuchel lineup anyway. So I don't really know what's going to happen tonight, but I think one of those 3 players will start. I don't know which one it is, but I think one of the 3 will start.
Yeah. No, I think out of the 3, I think Werner's definitely one that Thomas Tuchel's happy with. I think he mentioned in the press conference that he's definitely, out of the 3, I'd say he's probably the more likely to start in that game. I think Lukaku will come in. And I agree with you, I think almost a week ago, he was sort of posting that he's back in training, and like you said, he's been very active on Twitter as well. I think he was in Sing Your Dialect last night. I don't know if you were there, but it was that's a whole different episode in itself. But he's shown that he's got the quality in him to play. He's played with injuries before for other clubs, and I think Tuchel will want to win this game 100%. He won't want to lose it. He's a winner. So I can see him going out with his strongest squad. Personally, if it was me, I probably would put Lukaku in there just because of that. We know what Bonucci's about, and you need someone. You need someone who's got that sort of strength and he knows them. He's played with them in Serie A as well, so he understands how they work a bit better maybe than a Pulisic, who I feel would probably get knocked around if he played in that position. He's quite light on his feet at times, so I think you need someone strong mentally, physically in that sort of position as well. And I think Lukaku's the guy that does that. I think if he's on the bench, and I always say this about players, if you're on the bench, you're fit enough to play 90 minutes. So, if you wasn't fit, you wouldn't be on the bench, in my opinion. True. So I think for me, I'd put him in, maybe bring him off. Even if we're losing, I'd probably bring him off, and I'd give him 60 minutes, and maybe bring on a Timo Werner or a Kai Havertz or whoever, put in that position. But I think he needs game time definitely before, if he's going to start against Manchester United. He'll need a lot of game time. He's been out for a considerable amount of time now, so I think he needs a good 60 minutes in him, or even a 45 minutes, whatever. But he needs game time, and he needs to. We need him to score. We need him. I'd
Me
like him
too.
to get a goal tonight. For the reason that I want him to just get the feeling of being back in the pitch, being back in that sort of that role that he likes to play before United. I don't want him going in cold against a sort of rejuvenated United team. So it's going to be interesting. I'd love to see Ben Chilwell start again as well. I think it's again, we talk about the left back situation, or the left wing back situation on here quite a bit, but I just feel like going forward, I think he's sort of hit his form at the moment, and I think it's a shame for Alonso because when Chilwell was bench warming, Alonso was doing exactly the same thing. He was in great form, but I just think start Ben Chilwell, Reece James. I wouldn't change those centre backs. I think I'd leave them. I think he may put Christensen instead of Thiago Silva just to wrap him in a bit of cotton wool for the United game.
I would have said ahead of Chalobah, maybe Christensen ahead of Chalobah,
Do you
just to
reckon?
have just a free bit more experience, maybe in that back line.
I don't know, but I mean, I think Chalobah could. I think
I do,
he'll.
yeah, I do think he can do the job, like I
Yeah,
said before, but I still think maybe he'll want to go with his three most experienced centre backs. Just to,
it's a fair shout. It's a fair shout.
but
I'd rather see Silva in the United game,
yeah,
and
that's true.
I think if we can not have him in a Juventus game, which it's important. Obviously, every game you want to win, but I just feel this is a game where I think we've got Zenit, haven't we? After Juventus, I think. So I look at this game, and it's not the end of the world if we lose, and I hate saying that, but we're safe.
I want to win it. I want to win
No,
it.
no, of course. I want to win it, and especially being down there. I hate going to games and losing, but
No,
I think this is
I've lived in Italy as well, and I just know how like Juventus fans are like the Manchester United fans of Italy. You find them everywhere across the country, no matter where you live in Italy, and so I want to beat them. Yeah,
yeah. No, it's a fair shout. Obviously, we want to win, but I think if we can, for me, United's the big one.
yeah,
I'd rather
100%.
we can sacrifice getting a point out of this game, which I hate saying as well. I sound like I don't want to win the game. I do, but United for me is already in the back of my mind. I can't have United beating us, especially the season that they've had, and
Yeah.
I can't afford for that. So if it means compensating for tonight's game, then albeit. But yeah, we've got to beat United. But let's move on to the predictions for tonight. Obviously, it is a big game. It's probably the biggest game out of our group, I would say, in terms of Malmo and Zenit. This kind of feels like the game where we kind of need to show why we're champions of Europe. So let's go for your predictions. What do you think?
I think it is. I mean, I do agree with you in a way that United's a really, really important game, but I think we shouldn't underestimate the Zenit away game, how tough that's going to be. Trips to Russia, very, very difficult. And they gave us a very tough game at the Bridge in September. So I think that'll be a hard one, which means this one's even more important, being our last home game of the group stage. I think I'm going to stick with what I said in the previous episode with my prediction, which was 2-0. I think despite the injuries, we've got enough firepower in the team. I think we've got enough depth. We've got options to come off the bench. We'd be trailing by a goal or something like that. But I think I'm going to go with 2-0. I think no matter the centre backs, we'll keep that clean sheet. Whether it's Chalobah, whether it's Silva, whether it's Christensen, and as you said, I think if we do get a goal, or two goals, I think it's going to come from a defender again. I've actually got Thiago Silva as my first goal scorer on the app. So yeah, I think he will start this one, and hopefully he scores. So let me go with 2-0, a goal in each half, hopefully, and hopefully we, unlike the game in Italy in Turin, we don't let them score a goal and just defend that lead, because we know that Juventus defending leads are very, very good at that. So
very, very stubborn in terms of the way that they play. Yeah. So I can't remember if I gave a prediction in the last episode. If I did or I didn't, I've slept and I've not slept and I've not had a lot of coffee. So I'm gonna change it anyway. So if you've listened to episode 36, I'm probably going to change what I've said in that one to what I'm going to say now. I think it's going to be 1-0 Chelsea. I think it's going to be a very difficult game. I think we're going to have to do a lot of defending. I think I read that Danilo's out for Juventus, and they've got a couple of other absentees potentially, but I think he's the main key one out of there. But yeah, I'm going to go 1-0. I think Lukaku winner.
Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
I think so. I think he's
Yeah.
going to start. I think he's going to either start or come on. He's going to get the winner. So yeah, let's go for 1-0. But it's going to be an interesting game. Obviously, I know you're going to be there. I'm going to be there,
Yeah.
and Haydar's going to be there as well. So when we do episode 38, I'm sure we'll have different perspectives of the game as always. But for those who are listening on Spotify, you can follow us on YouTube as well. So if you search for From the Shed End on YouTube, we should come up. So give us a subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know your thoughts as well about what we've discussed today, especially about the Juventus game and also the Leicester game as well, where we spot on with what our analysis was. But if you're also watching on YouTube, you can find us on social media. You can see it at the bottom there. But just for anyone who's also listening, it's at From the Shed End on Twitter, and it's at From the Shed End with underscores between each of the words on Instagram. So give us a like and follow us on there as well. Interact with us. We've been busy over the last couple of days on Instagram and Twitter. The final thing I want to say before we jump off, congratulations to Thomas Tuchel, who's been put in as a finalist as the FIFA Men's Coach of the Year. So hopefully he wins that as well. We're picking up all the accolades, I think, this year, aren't we? So
if we congratulate every single player that's been nominated, we might be here for a while. Because I think even Emma Hayes is the women's manager is nominated. I think Marina Granevskaya is nominated as the director of football. So it's quite a few.
We'll clean sweep. But yeah, no, this has obviously been episode 37 from the Shed End podcast with myself, TDOT, and as always, I'm joined by Theo. So thank you for coming on early this morning. I know it's we're not morning people, so yeah, definitely gives me something to do on the journey down today to listen back to this. But yeah, so episode 37 from the Shed End podcast. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, and let us know your thoughts on what we've discussed today.